It's Ammer Harb coming or airing from Milan, and his paper is about to be devoted to humans and technology and speculative design futures. And the question is, can we see the invisible? Oh, you are
Uh,
invisible.
I'm sorry, it's not working the background for some reason. So I will just turn it off. Thank you very much for the introduction. I will just share my screen. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so thank you very much for the introduction. I'm really happy because this sort of paper is somehow complementary with what we've been speaking about today. Very interesting presentations and this sort of mixture between design and art. I'm more focused on design. The paper is Humans, Technology and Speculative Design Futures. I'm more relating to the philosophical backgrounds to design futures because this is the area I'm a bit interested in and this is the area I'm working in. I'm actually, just to give you a bit of context why I did write this paper, I work as a research fellow in a project called Fuel for Design, and it's future education literacy for designers. It's an Erasmus Plus project, so its context is education, and we're trying to somehow find the gaps in design futures education in design schools, and we're trying to tackle these gaps. One of the biggest gaps we always see in that is that the philosophical backgrounds of how we see the futures and the lenses we're looking at the futures from in design schools. And I'm going to discuss this a little bit in the upcoming slides. My research focus and what I'm doing is that I'm somehow trying to understand the relationship between design fiction and experiential features. So that's my area of focus. And I'm going to get you into the details of that. Just to give you a bit of hint of what I'm going to discuss, it's somehow a bit of, I would say, a convergent sort of process. I've been discussing the backgrounds and layers behind design futures. I'm thinking about the philosophical perspectives, and then I'm talking about the future humans. I speak about the ethical frameworks that shape these futures, what's the relationship between ethical frameworks and technology, and what are the design issues and how design can interfere in that. I speak about the critical design practices and in particular speculative design. So just before getting into anything, I have to just discuss the thing that's shaping what we're doing today in design, which is anthropocentrism, and why we do have this sort of counter oppositions or sort of counter opinions to what we're doing when we speak about the post-human and transhuman, why we do that, have that. It's the anthropocentrism. The anthropocentrism is basically the belief that value is human-centered and that all other beings are means to human ends, which means that humans are the center of everything, and that whatever human would need is somehow a consent to exploit the environment around it. Just let me get this to, yeah, okay. So one of the things that I have to say that in the past 3 decades, with the rise of awareness movements about the environment destruction that humans have made and the things that we've been the deterioration that were somehow caused by humans and other beings, there have been a bit sort of discussion about that sort of thing and what could be, I would say, what could be a reaction to what have been happening and what have been like influencing this epoch. One of these arguments is the argument by Donna Haraway that was extended to include the debate about how humans look at the other than humans and non-humans as well. How do we cohabitate with the other organisms around us and think about the organic and non-organic sort of things. So Donna Haraway have been exploring this concept of the Cthulhu theme, and the Cthulhu theme is something, a very interesting concept that she has been speaking about. She has been arguing that the Anthropocene should be ended as soon as possible, and that should be shortened down because it is not benefiting so far what we're doing. So she has noted that we should prepare for other epochs where multi-species living together, myriad interactive entities as assemblages, including the more than human, the other than human, the inhuman, and human as humus. So this is a concept that has been explored, and this is something that we also explore with when we speak about the futures of design, that we should also think from other perspectives of other sort of organisms that are living with us in the environment. A bit of thing that I have to speak about, which is the summary that Try has made about the debate of the post-human, that has actually made in 4 main points. One of them at the end of the human from an anthropocentric perception, that the human should end from this sort of point of view. Humans and the surrounding environment cannot be separated. Exploring and considering these concepts and how technology is affecting and gearing us with extra capabilities. The third point is that human environment is not only about humans, and it does consist of many other than humans, where animals, technology, and are the main pools of it. And the conclusion that the rational human should be perceived through the lens of relationship with other surroundings. So human should be somehow perceived within the others, not in a superior sort of level. That's the main sort of discussion about the that actually led to the counter sort of point of view of the transhumanism. And transhumanism is a movement that encourages human race to overcome its weakness and vulnerable traits by means of technological advancements in order to bring about the transhuman or post-human. So I think we've been speaking about today the post-human in a quite very elaborate way, and we've been discussing many sort of projects. So this is something that have been very beneficial to this talk. So I will get to the next part of it when we speak about sort of what could be the future humans. There's a bit of discussion about we might find a new species of humans, which we can't say they are humans because they are not humans. They are somehow a mixture of human, of organic and non-organic sort of composition. However, sort of other transhuman theorists do not agree with that, and they say that there are some sort of the post-human is could be considered as a human with an extra capabilities, but not a different species. Of course, when we speak about these sort of concepts, we have to get into the ethical implications of how these things work together. And before going to this, I have to note that the current ethical frameworks are somehow looking at the problems from an anthropometric sort of perspective. If we speak about deontology, for example, it's somehow exploring ethics from human intentions. If we speak about utilitarianism, we speak about the calculations human made to judge the consequence of actions. So that's how we look at the ethics from that sort of perspective. And the third framework is the virtue ethics, when we speak about how ethics, how an action could be ethical or not from the person who's doing it. The thing with that, which is a bit noting that we might need to frame new ethical frameworks, because they're both, the three of the frameworks are somehow looking at the actions, if they are ethical or not, from a human-centered sort of perspective. And at the end of the day, it's anthropocentric. I had to note this sort of implication or sort of debate about the ethical frameworks before getting into ethics and technology, because ethics and technology have a very complicated relationship. They're not very happy with each other. Sometimes you can see technology, for example, if we put the AI, for example, into discussion, AI can be something that is very beneficial and very supportive to humans and very like making life easy and making better futures. And sometimes it might have serious implications to the sort of consequences that we might see from artificial intelligence. We might have sort of questions about transparency, self-determination, responsibility, agency, human dignity, and loads of things surrounding this. So the sort of ethical frameworks that we look at technology, and then when we speak about design, I will also highlight this, why design and technology are somehow connected. So we have to find somehow a new way to look at this, a new ethical frameworks. I then get into where's the problem with design and why design might have issues. Dunn and Raby have been discussing that by the end of the Cold War and the fall of Berlin Wall, market-led capitalism has taken over any possible alternative models for societies. And that's a very interesting thing, because design at that time did not have any other alternative. It has to align with capitalism somehow. So it has to be somehow affirmative and somehow conforming to the status quo and not enacting a change. There have been, of course, many sort of directions like the sort of critical design and radical design and all these sort of things that shaped speculative design today. But the majority of design has been aligning with the status quo. And this, of course, led to unfavored implications on the social and environmental levels. But what can design really do? That's a very interesting thing, because designers, they have the opportunity to envision the futures. They have the opportunity to enact a change. They have the opportunity to somehow look at the implications of the things they are making today and trying to influence the direction of scientists somehow. And that's a very sort of powerful capability for designers that design should be capitalizing on and not ignoring it. However, what's happening is that we are somehow ignoring this, and that's a bit of a design issue. This, of course, this sort of considering the fact that technology is now somehow aligning with design, and technology is a bit of an additive sort of powerful capabilities to design, we have to consider what sort of implication and consequences of the futures that we are designing and the lives that we are designing. We are somehow designing emotions, we're designing our lives, and as we've seen in the other presentations today, we are designing sort of prosthetics, and sort of we're somehow having an extra sort of lives, and they're all designed. So whether it will be human or inhuman or a mixture of both, how do we relate to each other and how could they relate to the environment? These are all sort of valid questions that we should think about when we design, should think about how things might be complicated somehow. And here I speak about the taxonomy that Thorpe and Thorpe made to design, which a very interesting one, because they put like 4 categories to design: the commercial design, the experimental design, responsible design, and discursive design. Commercial design is the majority of design we see today, which is somehow design that are led by profitability and somehow aligning with the sort of capital and market-led needs. The experimental design is they aim to explore and they aim to experiment maybe new materials, new techniques, new methods, and responsible design, which is a bit related to a humanitarian cause. And the 4th one, which is I am personally interested in, the discursive design. Discursive design is meant to communicate ideas, is meant to focus on concepts, is meant to use design in order to open up a discourse about issues. So if we speak about that, discursive design and critical design, it's not a solved thing. If they are the same thing or not, it's something that is still debatable. It's an ongoing project to see if they are the same or not. But I would say that today that they are somehow similar. And they're being used interchangeably in literature, to be honest. So I would say critical design provides an analytical position to exploring and conceptualizing the communicating around emerging technologies. So we are somehow putting things into an analytical position, and we're trying to understand what could be the sort of contextualizing issues around it. It somehow uses design tools and process to solve a problem, but to rethink it, not to solve a problem, sorry, but to rethink the borders and the parameters of this problem. So it's not trying to put like a design output. The main is to discuss around design. Design as a means for inquiry in this case, because design is being used to open up this discussion and inquiry. It's not designed for the sake of designing a product or sake of a utilitarian sort of project. Another sort of classification of the critical design that Malpass has made is three of them: associative design, critical design, and speculative design. I've been discussing, I would like to focus on the speculative design in this sort of occasion, because that's the branch that is connected, that is concerned with the futures, which is the main issues that I would like to speak about today. So speculative design is a type of design, is an activity where conjecture is as good as knowledge, where futuristic and alternative scenarios convey ideas, and where the goal is to emphasize implications of mindless decisions we take today for mankind. It means that somehow speculative design is trying to emphasize on the, I don't want to say negative, but I mean the flows that we might make today. So it's somehow trying to focus on that, capitalize on that, and make it something big, so that we can. It's an alarming tool of what we can, of what might happen if we adopted this sort of thing. It combines informed hypothetical extrapolations of an emerging technology, development with deep consideration of the cultural landscape into which it might be deployed, to speculate on future products, systems, and services. So it has to be somehow a bit of understanding to the sort of a deep consideration of the cultural landscape around things. So it's not actually a bit of superficial design practice. It's very intellectual, and it's very sort of analytical and deep in terms of the output of it. I might put this as an example, which is the Kiichi Matsuda hyper reality video. It's a bit long video, so I'm just putting part of it. Kiichi Matsuda, in that sort of project, was like trying to extrapolate on what if augmented reality has been part of our daily life. So he's put that video, and he's like been imagining what would happen if everything was somehow augmented around us. So that's a bit of a shop experience, and the user has been sort of hacked. So that sort of system that he's using has been hacked. So he's making this sort of contrast between the normal life and the augmented life. That's a very interesting sort of project. So to make us somehow imagine what might happen if something, technology like this has been used widely. The thing about speculative design is that it encourages the user to consider how the present is future and how we might potentially have the chance to reconfigure the future. So it has given us as users, I would say, or audience, it's given us the power to think about that we can enact a change, that we might change things, that we have to think about what might happen if we did something in some sort of way. So it's a bit of getting part of the future. It doesn't have to be dystopian futures, but it has to discuss the concepts around the emerging technologies and the implications of new science around us, so that we see what might happen if something like that has been deployed. Speculative design is not
just a second, sorry. Unfortunately, you have only 1 minute.
It's not about this is the thing that we might say, that we would like to say. It's more of this is the thing that we would like to discuss. This is the thing that we would like to. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Harb, sorry. It was that.
Am I?
Your time has been out already.
I'm really sorry. I couldn't hear you. Sorry. So I'm just last the slide. So that's it.
Okay. Please just come up.
I'm just closing it. So so that's a bit of speculative design. I do not say what should be a preferable future. It's more of putting things into discussion, and people who should discuss what could be a preferable future for them. So thank you very much for this, and I'm open if you'd like to ask about anything.
Thank you so much. I can see a question here from Hul. In terms of speculative design, I fear that post-colonial or culture is not mapped enough. The post-colonial conscience is very new. The fear is post-colonial presence will encounter a future of representational void or a derivative cultural mapping. What do you think of it?
To be honest, the speculative design has many criticisms and in many sort of contexts. That's a very sort of big thing. Because, you know, speculative design is actually an emergent sort of practice, and sometimes it's been confused with art. It's not art, to be honest. It's more related to presenting an artifact and researching through design, and somehow it has a bit of divergent ideologies around it and divergent sort of perspectives around it. So not everyone, we don't have like a prescription of what is meant by speculative design. So somehow it's lacking a lot of things, and it's lacking a lot of perspectives, and a lot of I would say a big sort of researchers from design would accuse design, speculative design, as being not design, as being not making the function of design, which is presenting something useful, because at the end of the day, you're not presenting something useful. So it's lacking many things. It's not only the post-colonial sort of perspectives, that's true. And sometimes, and that's what I've been also trying to explore as well, besides thinking about critical design and speculative design, which is these sort of complementary directions that might fill the gaps in speculative design, like the experiential features and design fiction and other sort of things that are trying to fill these gaps and make it more into real design direction, if we can call it like that. I know I did not answer, because I understand it's like a question of something that is lacking, and why it is lacking, because it is still an emergent sort of direction. So you can't really judge why things is not there, you know.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think that you have given us a great deal of perspectives from which we could take a look at the design. I have made several screenshots from your presentation. It is really very much intriguing.